May 12th, 2008. Wenchuan County, Sichuan Province, China. An earthquake measuring 8.0 on the Richter scale struck without warning. If you remember Hurricane Katrina or the devastating 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, you can begin to imagine the scale of this disaster. Nearly 70,000 people died. Entire towns were buried under rubble. And in the chaos of that day, a 21-year-old college student was walking through the ruins, desperately trying to get home to his family. The ground was still shaking. His own loved ones might be in danger. And then he saw a stranger, a young foreign woman bleeding, desperate, barely able to stand. In a situation like this, making the decision to stop and help is incredibly difficult. Every step could trigger another collapse. Most people would keep walking, and no one would blame them. But this college student, Jiang Wei, made a different choice, and the woman he saved would spend the next 13 years searching for him, just to say 2 words, "Thank you."
To the person that actually saved my life, it was very healing process. It was very powerful for me.
Let me take you back to that moment. It was May 14th, 2 days after the earthquake hit. Jiang Wei was a student at Sichuan Jiaotong University, and he had been making his way through the destroyed mountain town of Hongkou, trying to reach his family. That's when he came across 2 young women stumbling through the debris. They were Israeli tourists, Maya and Anat, who had been hiking in the mountains when the earthquake struck. What I found most striking when I researched this story was Maya's condition. Her jaw was completely shattered. Someone had wrapped a man's t-shirt around her head like a makeshift bandage, desperately trying to hold her broken jaw in place. Because of where the injury was, she could not speak. She could not eat. For 2 full days since the earthquake, she had not had a single bite of food or sip of water. She was nearly unconscious from exhaustion and blood loss. Her friend Anat was doing everything she could to keep Maya upright, but there was no way Anat could carry her friend miles through this terrain alone. They still had a long, dangerous journey ahead to reach the city where there might be medical help. And that is when their paths crossed with Jang Wei. Jang Wei looked at Maya, this stranger from halfway around the world, barely conscious and unable to speak. He looked at the destroyed mountain road stretching ahead of them. Aftershocks were still shaking the ground every few minutes. Somewhere in this disaster zone, his own family was waiting for him, possibly injured, possibly worse. He had every reason to keep moving toward home. But then Jiang Wei made a choice. Years later, when reporters asked him why he stopped to help, his answer was remarkably simple. He said, "She needed help, and I was able to help her." That was all I thought about in that moment. No dramatic heroic speech, no wrestling with the decision. Just one human being recognizing that another human being desperately needed him. So he told Maya and Anat that he would walk with them to the city. What nobody knew at that moment, including Jiang Wei himself, was that this journey would take 12 brutal hours. A stretch of road that would normally take just 1 hour to walk would now take them 6 hours to get through.
Just took my hand and put it like on his, took his hand, put it on his neck, and we started walking together.
Let me tell you what those 12 hours actually looked like. They were facing a muddy mountain road completely destroyed by the earthquake. Aftershocks kept coming every few minutes. Jang Wei on one side of Maya, Anat on the other, practically carrying her between them. Maya could not speak because of her shattered jaw. She could not eat, but she was conscious enough to feel every agonizing step. And here is a detail that really got to me when I researched this story. Jiang Wei noticed that Maya was becoming dangerously dehydrated. But how do you give water to someone who cannot open their mouth? He found an empty water bottle. He used the bottle cap to scoop up tiny amounts of water, and then, drop by drop, he poured it down her throat. They were in a disaster zone. Every minute mattered, and this young man was giving water to a stranger 1 bottle cap at a time. 6 hours into the journey, Jiang Wei's uncle found them and joined to help carry Maya. Together, they kept going. Later, they met up with other Israeli students who had been searching for Maya and Anat. Finally, around 7 p.m. that evening, 12 hours after they started, they got Maya onto an ambulance. She was rushed to West China Hospital where surgeons operated on her jaw. The surgery was successful. Maya's life was saved. She was eventually sent back to Israel for further treatment. When Maya returned to Israel, something remarkable happened. Her story exploded across Israeli media. What captured everyone's attention was not just the drama of the rescue itself, but what it revealed about human nature. Maya told reporters something that has stayed with me ever since I first read it. She said, "Love and compassion between people can transcend race and language." These local people had just lost their families, lost their homes. They were living through unimaginable tragedy, and yet they still selflessly helped a complete stranger from another country. This moment of humanity will stay with me for the rest of my life. The story became a national sensation in Israel. The villagers in Hongkou who pulled Maya and Anat from the rubble, a Chinese girl nicknamed Tian Tian, who stayed with Maya for 2 days to help translate, and of course Jang Wei. They all became widely known across Israel. From that moment on, Maya made it her life's mission to promote Chinese-Israeli friendship. She gave interview after interview telling the story of the good people of Chengdu again and again. But there was something that haunted her. She had never been able to thank Jiang Wei, so she began searching for him. Whenever she heard that someone from China had moved into her community, she would seek them out, hoping they might help her find him. But Maya had only 2 pieces of information: his name and a single photograph. Finding one person among 1.4 billion people was like looking for a needle in a haystack.
I called to the embassy and I called to the consul and I called everyone, please find me, Jiang Wei, and nobody could do it. Everyone said, we don't know where he is, it's too hard to find him.
In 2018, a friend in China finally recognized Jiang Wei in the photograph. Maya and Jang Wei briefly reconnected on WeChat, China's most popular messaging app. But because of the pandemic and other circumstances, they soon lost touch again. Then, in April 2021, Maya was scrolling through social media when she came across a post from the Israeli consulate in Chengdu. The consulate was thanking the town of Sichuan for donating 100,000 masks to Israel during the pandemic. In return, Israel was donating an electronic library to a local school in Wenchuan. When Maya saw the post, something immediately clicked. She left a comment sharing her story, and the Israeli consul general in Chengdu, Ron Peleg, saw it. He later told reporters, "Everyone who read this story was deeply moved. I knew I had to help Maya find Jiang Wei again." On May 11th, 2021, almost exactly 13 years after the earthquake, the consulate arranged a video call. Maya and Jiang Wei saw each other's faces on the screen for the first time in over a decade. Maya broke down in tears. Maya introduced Jiang Wei to her 3 children. Jiang Wei smiled at the screen, and then Maya finally said what she had been waiting 13 years to say. 13 years ago, my jaw was injured and I couldn't speak. During those 12 hours when you helped me, I couldn't say a single word to you. And when they put me into the ambulance, I couldn't even say thank you. She kept repeating thank you again and again. She told him that her jaw had healed years ago, but only now, as she said these words out loud, did she feel that the wound in her heart had finally closed.
Thank you, and I promise that I will see you in live. I don't know if I come to China or I invite you to come to Israel, but it will happen.
What struck me most about Jiang Wei's response was his humility. He didn't see himself as a hero. He said he had simply done what anyone should do. But then he said something that truly moved me. He thanked Maya. He said that her courage and resilience during those 12 hours had inspired him for the past 13 years. And here's something I found especially striking. Jiang Wei's own family didn't even know about his heroic act until just before this video call. When he finally showed his children the old news articles about the rescue, they looked at the photos and thought their father had been the one who was rescued in the earthquake. They had no idea he was the rescuer. At the end of the video call in 2021, Consul General Peleg presented Jiang Wei with a special medal. Engraved on the medal, in both Hebrew and Chinese, was an ancient Jewish proverb: "Whoever saves one life saves an entire world." But the story doesn't end there. 3 years later, on May 12, 2024, exactly 16 years after the earthquake, Maya's dream finally came true. She flew to Chengdu and met Jang Wei in person, not through a screen this time, but face to face. On May 15th, they traveled together back to Dujiangyan, retracing the path where their lives had intersected 16 years earlier. Maya visited the clinic where she had received her first treatment. She walked through the Dujiangyan scenic area, seeing how the town had been rebuilt from the ruins. And she held Jiang Wei's hand again, just as she had dreamed. As I was researching this story, I kept coming back to that proverb, because it's true in ways we don't always realize. Jiang Wei didn't just save Maya's life that day. He saved the lives of her 3 children who would not be here today. He saved all the people Maya has helped and inspired over the years by sharing her story. He saved a piece of our faith in humanity for everyone who has heard it. I think we're always looking for heroes in movies, in sports, in politics, but real heroism, it's a 21-year-old college student who stopped his journey home without hesitation to save a foreign stranger. It's choosing compassion when he had every excuse not to. It's staying for 12 hours when he could have walked away in 1 minute. And 16 years later, we see the full circle of that choice. Because if this story teaches us anything, it's that the smallest acts of kindness can echo across decades and across oceans. And maybe, just maybe, that is what saving the world actually looks like.